The afternoon sun was starting to dip low in the sky, casting long shadows across the quiet streets of a small town. A young schoolgirl, barely 14, walked along the sidewalk with her backpack slung over one shoulder. She had just finished another long day at school, her books slightly heavy in her hands, and she was thinking about the homework waiting for her at home and the warm dinner her mother would be preparing. She loved the quiet moments on this street. The familiar sounds of birds chirping and leaves rustling in the gentle breeze, and the feeling of being almost home. But that calm afternoon was about to change in an instant. From a distance, she noticed the low rumble of motorcycles. Her eyes lifted toward the street corner, and she saw a group of bikers pulling up, their engines loud and vibrating through the pavement. She felt a small pang of unease but tried to ignore it, hoping they would just pass by. The bikers were not subtle, revving their engines loudly as they slowed down near where she was walking. One of them, clearly the leader of the group, looked at her with a mocking grin. He revved his bike again and yelled out something rude, trying to catch her attention. The words made her freeze, and she felt a knot form in her stomach. She wasn't sure how to react. Should she ignore him and keep walking? Should she run? She knew that showing fear might encourage him, but standing her ground felt impossible. The biker laughed as he noticed her hesitation. He revved his motorcycle again and circled closer, slowing down beside her. His friends followed, forming a semicircle around her. Her heart pounded faster, each beat echoing in her ears. The girl hugged her backpack tighter, instinctively moving slightly toward the edge of the sidewalk to avoid being boxed in. But the biker matched her movements, keeping a menacing presence right next to her. She could feel the heat from the bike's engine, smell the faint aroma of gasoline mixed with leather, and hear the low growl of the machines as if they were alive and aware of her fear. She tried to step past them, hoping to slip away unnoticed, but the biker seemed to anticipate her move. He raised his hand, gesturing in a way that was meant to intimidate. His friends laughed, enjoying the display of control, and the girl's chest tightened with anxiety. She wished someone would appear to help her. She looked down the street, hoping to see another pedestrian or maybe a passing car that could make the bikers think twice about bothering her. But the street was empty. It was just her, the motorcycles, and the cruel grin of the young man trying to humiliate her. She felt small, invisible, and alone. Her mind raced as she considered all the possibilities. She thought about running, but the uneven sidewalk made her hesitate. She thought about shouting for help, but the sound of the motorcycles overpowered any voice she could make. She felt a wave of helplessness wash over her, the kind that makes your legs feel like lead and your chest tight with fear. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself, but the fear did not leave her. She wanted to be brave, to show that she was not afraid. But in that moment, bravery seemed like a distant dream. The biker leaned closer, his face full of mockery, and the girl felt a chill run down her spine. He made a comment that was meant to embarrass her, loud enough for everyone in the immediate area to hear if anyone had been around. She didn't answer, didn't even look at him, hoping that ignoring him might make him lose interest, but he didn't. He seemed to feed off the attention, circling her slowly, his friends laughing in the background. The girl wished desperately that someone, anyone, would appear to break the tension. She wished for a friend walking nearby, a parent passing in a car, or even a store owner coming out to ask what was happening. But there was nothing. The street remained quiet, empty except for the girl's anxious breaths and the roaring motorcycles. Her hands gripped the straps of her backpack so tightly that her fingers hurt. But she didn't dare let go. She kept her eyes on the sidewalk ahead, taking careful, deliberate steps, trying not to trip, trying not to draw attention to herself. Every time the biker revved his engine or made another mocking comment, her stomach churned. She wanted to disappear, to vanish into the shadows, but there was no place to hide. The fear in her chest was almost unbearable. It was the kind of fear that makes you wish for a miracle, the kind that makes you feel like time has slowed down so you can analyze every possible escape. She was trapped in her own mind, counting the seconds, hoping for the ordeal to end. Suddenly, the biker stopped circling and stared at her with a smirk that made her stomach flip. He seemed to be enjoying the power he had over her, enjoying the way she seemed frozen in place. The girl's heart raced faster and she felt a lump form in her throat. She swallowed hard, trying not to cry, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to spill over. She felt ashamed for being scared, even though she knew it was natural. She wanted to move, to run, to escape, but her body refused to obey her commands. The biker's presence was overwhelming, his loud laughter echoing off the nearby walls, making her feel even smaller. For what felt like an eternity, she stood there, trapped in a circle of motorcycles and mocking voices, wishing that anyone would come to her aid. She took another deep breath, trying to stay calm, and reminded herself that this would not last forever. She tried to focus on the small things she could control, her breathing, her steps, her balance. But it was difficult. The fear was too strong, too immediate, too real. She felt the heat of the engines, the smell of exhaust, the vibration through the ground, and it all combined to make her feel like she was in a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. She tried to think of a plan, anything that could help her. She considered stepping into the street to avoid the bikes, but the traffic was unpredictable. She considered running toward the nearby park, but it was a longer route and she wasn't sure she could make it safely. She considered shouting for help, but she knew the motorcycles would drown out her voice. Every option seemed dangerous, every thought complicated. She felt trapped, both physically and mentally. The fear was sharp, biting, and relentless. As she stood there, frozen and overwhelmed, the stranger approached the group with calm confidence, his steps steady and purposeful. The girl stayed just behind him, watching with wide eyes, her fear slowly mingling with a sense of relief. The bikers had been full of bravado moments ago, laughing and revving their engines, but now they seemed unsure. The stranger, tall and strong, did not shout or threaten. He simply walked toward them, his gaze steady and unwavering. As he got closer, one of the bikers leaned forward on his motorcycle, trying to appear intimidating. He laughed and shouted, but the stranger did not flinch. The girl noticed the change in the biker's expression, as he realized that this was not someone to take lightly. The stranger's calm presence carried an unspoken message. He would not allow anyone to harm this girl. The girl felt her shoulders relax slightly, though she was still tense. She had never seen anyone so composed in the face of someone so aggressive. The stranger stopped a few feet from the group and spoke in a steady, clear voice. He did not shout or call names. He simply addressed the biker with a question that made the man pause. The words were firm but not cruel, and they carried an authority that could not be ignored. The biker, who had been enjoying the fear he had caused, suddenly seemed unsure. He muttered something, a nervous laugh escaping his lips, and glanced at his friends. They too were no longer laughing. The stranger's presence had shifted the energy in the air. The girl could feel it, a heavy tension replaced by an awkward hesitation. The motorcycles, once roaring and threatening, now seemed less menacing as the stranger stood calmly in front of them. The girl watched, fascinated as the stranger slowly but deliberately made his way closer, still maintaining a safe distance. He spoke again, his words measured and calm. He did not threaten violence. He spoke about respect and the consequences of intimidating someone weaker. The bikers listened, caught off guard by the seriousness and logic in his voice. The stranger had a way of making them question their actions without raising his voice, without using anger or fear. He simply stood there, a steady presence, and made them feel the weight of their own behavior. The girl felt a surge of hope. She had been terrified moments ago, feeling trapped and alone, but now she realized that she was not powerless. She was witnessing someone stand up for her in a way that made the bullies think twice. She felt a flicker of courage begin to grow inside her, a small but steady flame that reminded her that fear could be faced and overcome. The leader of the bikers, the one who had been mocking her the most, now shifted uncomfortably on his seat. He opened his mouth to speak but seemed unsure what to say. The stranger did not rush him or pressure him. He simply maintained eye contact, giving the man a chance to reconsider. The other bikers, sensing the tension, looked at each other nervously. They had been riding together, acting as a group, but now the confidence that had driven them began to crumble under the stranger's calm authority. The girl noticed small details that made her feel safer. The stranger's shoulders were relaxed, not tense, showing that he was not angry but confident. His hands were visible, open, showing he meant no harm. His voice was steady, even carrying a sense of fairness. These little things mattered to her. They showed her that he could handle the situation without escalating it, without making things worse. She had never seen anyone command respect in such a quiet but powerful way. Time seemed to stretch as the bikers weighed their next move. The leader shifted again, muttering under his breath. The stranger's calm gaze never wavered. He continued speaking in a tone that was firm but respectful. explaining that intimidating someone for fun was not acceptable, that it was unfair, and that it reflected poorly on them. His words were not full of anger, but they carried a force that made the bikers uncomfortable. They were not used to being spoken to like this, and they had not expected anyone to stand up to them so calmly. The girl felt her chest rise and fall with a mix of relief and awe. She was still scared, but the fear was no longer paralyzing. She realized that she could trust the stranger to help her, that she was not alone anymore. She took a small step forward, feeling a sense of safety she had not felt moments ago. The stranger noticed her movement and gave her a slight nod, reassuring her that she was okay, that she was protected. One of the bikers finally spoke, trying to regain some control of the situation. His voice was rough, but there was a hint of hesitation. The stranger listened quietly, nodding slightly but not reacting with anger. His calmness made the biker feel exposed, as if the words he was saying were meaningless in the presence of someone who did not fear him. The girl could see the change in the biker's demeanor, the subtle shift from arrogance to uncertainty. It was almost as if the stranger's mere presence had dissolved the power the biker thought he had. The girl took another step closer to the stranger, feeling the protective presence even more strongly. She had been terrified of these men just moments ago, and now she felt a growing sense of security. The stranger spoke a few more words, not loud, not threatening, but clear enough to make the bikers think. The words carried an authority that did not rely on force. They relied on integrity, on the certainty of right and wrong, and on the unshakable confidence of someone who knew how to protect and defend. The bikers exchanged uneasy glances. Their laughter had disappeared, replaced by silent tension. They had expected an easy target, a frightened girl. But they were confronted instead by someone who did not back down, who did not need to prove anything with violence. The stranger's quiet strength made the bikers feel small, uncertain, and unsure of how to proceed. The girl felt a mix of awe and relief. She had witnessed courage before, but never like this. She felt inspired, knowing that sometimes the strongest action is calm and steady, not loud or aggressive. The leader of the bikers finally looked away, muttering something under his breath. The other bikers hesitated, unsure whether to follow or stay. The stranger continued to maintain his calm stance, showing no rush, no aggression, just presence and attention. The girl felt a small smile form on her face, realizing that the danger might be passing. She still clutched her backpack tightly, but the fear that had dominated her moments ago was loosening its grip. The stranger's focus never wavered from the bikers, but he also kept an eye on the girl, ensuring that she felt safe. He spoke a few more words, emphasizing respect and kindness, explaining that the girl felt a sense of calm wash over her as the bikers backed away, but she remained close to the stranger, her heart still racing. She realized that even though the immediate danger was gone, the experience had shaken her deeply. Her hands still gripped the straps of her backpack, her knees still weak, but she felt an incredible sense of gratitude for the stranger who had stepped in without hesitation. He had not shouted or used force, yet he had turned the situation around completely. The stranger knelt slightly, not to make himself smaller, but to meet her gaze. His expression was kind and reassuring, and she felt as if all the tension that had been weighing on her just moments ago began to melt. He spoke gently, asking if she was okay and if she had been hurt. The girl shook her head, too overwhelmed for words. She wanted to express her thanks, to tell him how scared she had been, but the words felt stuck in her throat. He seemed to understand without needing an answer, giving her a comforting smile and a gentle nod. As they stood together on the quiet street, the girl noticed how the stranger exuded a sense of calm confidence. He was aware of his surroundings, ready to respond if needed, yet he did not appear aggressive. He had a way of standing firmly while remaining approachable, and she felt the safety radiating from him. She realized that his presence alone had changed the atmosphere. The bikers had felt that too. His calmness had overpowered their aggression without a single act of violence. The girl began to speak, telling him about how the bikers had tried to humiliate her and how frightened she had felt. She described the circle they had formed, their mocking laughter, and the way one of them had come close to scare her. The stranger listened carefully, nodding at appropriate moments, acknowledging her feelings. He did not interrupt or dismiss her fear. His attention was entirely on her, making her feel heard and understood. something that mattered more than she could have imagined in that moment. He explained to her that fear is natural, and that feeling scared does not mean weakness. It simply meant she was human. He spoke about how sometimes people try to take advantage of others' fear, and that the best response is to remain calm and find help when needed. He told her that she had been brave just by standing there and keeping herself together despite being scared. The girl felt a mixture of relief and pride. She had never thought of herself as brave, but hearing it from someone she trusted made her believe it. The stranger then suggested a safe route for her to take the rest of the way home. He walked beside her, making sure she felt secure as they moved along the sidewalk. The girl realized how heavy her backpack had felt earlier, not just physically but emotionally. Now walking beside someone she trusted, the weight seemed lighter. The sun was beginning to set, casting warm golden hues across the street, and the girl felt a sense of peace returning to her heart. As they walked, the stranger pointed out small ways to stay safe, like keeping to well-lit areas, being aware of surroundings, and trusting her instincts. He spoke in a way that was simple and understandable, not patronizing, and the girl found herself absorbing every word. She felt as if she had learned more in these few minutes than she had in weeks of lessons about being safe. It was practical advice, but also empowering. She felt stronger with each step, knowing that someone had shown her how courage could be quiet and deliberate. The stranger noticed a small park along their route and suggested they walk through it, explaining it was a safer, more open path with other people around. The girl nodded, appreciating the consideration. As they walked, they passed a few neighbors who greeted them politely. The girl realized that the presence of the stranger made her feel confident enough to respond, even smiling at the friendly faces. She had been too scared before, but now she felt a sense of normalcy returning to her day. During their walk, the girl asked questions, curiosity mixing with relief. She wanted to know how someone could remain so calm in a situation that had terrified her. The stranger explained that it was about preparation, experience, and believing that fear does not control actions. He told her that it was important to be observant and aware, and that courage is often quiet, not loud or showy. The girl listened intently, feeling inspired by his words. She realized that courage could be learned, that it was not something only certain people possessed. They reached the edge of the street near her home, and the girl's house was in sight. She felt a sense of bittersweet relief. She was glad to be almost home, yet she wished she could spend more time learning from the stranger who had helped her. He knelt again, meeting her gaze, and reminded her to always trust herself and seek help when needed. She promised she would remember his advice, feeling a renewed sense of confidence and safety. The stranger gave her one last reassuring nod and began to walk away, disappearing into the evening shadows. The girl watched him go, feeling an overwhelming gratitude for his intervention. She realized that this encounter had changed something inside her. She had faced fear, experienced courage in action, and learned the power of calmness and presence. The biker's attempt to humiliate her had failed, not because of her own strength alone, but because someone had shown up at the right moment, embodying courage and protection. Inside her home, the girl recounted the story to her family, describing every detail from start to finish. Her parents listened with concern, fear, and then relief. They were amazed by the stranger's courage and the way he had handled the situation without confrontation. The girl felt proud of herself too, proud that she had managed to stay composed enough to survive the encounter and follow the guidance of someone who had shown her the way. The event became a lesson in bravery for the girl. She began to understand that fear was not the enemy, but an indication to be careful and observant. She learned that courage could be quiet, that protection could come from standing firm with calm confidence, and that sometimes help comes from unexpected places. The memory of the stranger's presence stayed with her, a comforting reminder that even in frightening situations, someone could intervene to make things right. Over the next few days, the girl reflected on the incident repeatedly. She about how fear had felt when the bikers circled her, how hopeless she had felt, and how quickly that changed when the stranger appeared. She realized that his calm demeanor and steady approach had finally reached her neighborhood, the familiar sights of homes and gardens providing a sense of comfort she had not felt since leaving school. The sunlight was fading, casting warm hues over the street, and the sounds of the town settling into the evening added a calm rhythm to her steps. She felt the stranger's presence still beside her, steady and reassuring, guiding her through the final stretch safely. The fear that had gripped her chest earlier had subsided, replaced with a cautious but growing sense of confidence. As they walked, the stranger continued to speak gently, sharing practical advice in a simple, approachable way. He talked about paying attention to surroundings, listening to instincts, and staying calm under pressure. He reminded her that it was okay to feel scared, but that fear could be managed with awareness and careful action. The girl absorbed every word, feeling a renewed sense of strength, knowing that the lessons she was learning were not just about avoiding danger, but about understanding herself and how to handle challenges. The girl glanced at her house, noticing her mother waiting by the window, worry etched on her face. Relief washed over her as she realized she was almost home. She wanted to run and tell her mother everything, but she also felt the need to savor the presence of the stranger who had protected her. She felt grateful for the calm, steady guidance that had carried her safely through such a frightening situation. It was a feeling she would not forget, a quiet heroism that had changed her perspective entirely. The stranger slowed as they approached her driveway, allowing her to catch up and feel the space around her. He pointed out small things that mattered, like walking on the side of the sidewalk away from traffic and choosing paths where there were more people around. His attention to detail showed that he genuinely cared about her safety, not just in the immediate moment, but in preparing her for future situations. The girl nodded, realizing that this guidance was empowering, giving her tools she could use to protect herself. Once they reached the edge of the driveway, the girl's mother stepped outside, concern and relief written all over her face. She rushed to her daughter, wrapping her in a tight embrace. The girl clung to her mother, feeling a mixture of safety and gratitude. She introduced the stranger, explaining briefly how he had intervened when the bikers had tried to intimidate her. The mother's eyes widened in surprise and gratitude. She thanked the stranger repeatedly, clearly touched by his courage and kindness. The stranger shook his head modestly, assuring them that it was his duty to help, and that the girl had been brave through the ordeal. He reminded the girl to trust her instincts and to be confident in facing fear in the future. His words carried a warmth and reassurance that left both the girl and her mother feeling safe and inspired. The girl realized that courage was not just about physical strength, but about standing up for what is right and protecting those in need. The stranger's calm presence had demonstrated that in a way she would remember forever. After a few minutes, the stranger began to leave and the girl watched him walk away, feeling a sense of loss but also deep gratitude. She knew that the lesson he had imparted would stay with her for years to come. She turned to her mother, eager to explain everything in detail from the moment the bikers first appeared to the calm way the stranger had handled the situation. She described his words, his confidence, and the sense of protection that had allowed her to feel safe despite her fear. Her mother listened attentively, holding her hand and nodding, proud of her bravery and thankful for the intervention that had prevented harm. In the days following the incident, the girl found herself reflecting on the encounter repeatedly. She realized that fear could be managed and that it was possible to face intimidating situations without panicking. The stranger had shown her that courage could take many forms and that calm, steady action could be more powerful than aggression. She began to carry herself with more confidence, aware of her surroundings but not fearful. The lesson had extended beyond the immediate danger. It had given her a sense of self-assurance and understanding of how to handle challenges in life. Her friends at school noticed a change in her demeanor. She walked with a quiet confidence, no longer as easily intimidated by teasing or challenges. She shared her story with a few trusted friends, emphasizing the importance of staying calm and seeking help when necessary. The girl found herself inspired to help others, realizing that even small acts of courage and protection could have a significant impact on someone else's life. She remembered the stranger's calm words and presence, and they became a guide for her own actions. The girl also shared her story with her teachers, who were impressed by her bravery and the way she handled herself. They reinforced the lesson, reminding the students about the importance of awareness, courage, and helping others in need. The girl felt proud, knowing that she had learned a valuable life lesson from a real-life example of courage and kindness. The stranger had not only protected her physically, but had also shown her how to act with integrity and confidence in challenging situations. As time passed, the girl continued to think about the encounter. She realized that she had grown stronger emotionally and mentally. The fear that had once seemed overwhelming no longer held power over her. She understood that danger could appear unexpectedly, but the way to respond was to remain calm, assess the situation, and seek help when needed. The stranger had provided a model of behavior that she could emulate, showing her that courage is often quiet and deliberate, not loud or aggressive. The girl also reflected on the impact of kindness and empathy. The stranger had not only protected her, but had treated her with respect and dignity throughout the encounter. He had acknowledged her fear without judgment, empowered her with practical advice, and ensured her safety without showing anger or aggression. She realized that true courage and heroism were not about showing off strength, but about protecting and uplifting others with calm confidence and integrity. The experience stayed with the girl as she continued her daily life. Walking home from school, she felt a sense of awareness and preparedness that she had not had before. She noticed the world around her with a new clarity, recognizing potential dangers but also seeing opportunities to help others. The lesson of the stranger's calm courage became a guiding principle for her, influencing how she interacted with friends, family, and even strangers in small, meaningful ways. One evening, while sitting at her desk doing homework, the girl reflected on how quickly her ordinary day had turned into a frightening experience, and how quickly it had been transformed by a single act of courage. She thought about the stranger's presence, his calm demeanor, and the way he had empowered her in the moment. She realized that courage and kindness could ripple outward, affecting not just one person but many, creating the days after the encounter passed quietly. Yet the memory of that afternoon remained vivid in the girl's mind. She thought about the fear she had felt when the bikers had tried to intimidate her, the helplessness that had gripped her, and then the sudden shift when the stranger had appeared. Every detail of his calm presence, steady voice, and confident stance stayed with her, replaying in her mind like a lesson she could never forget. It was a lesson about courage, kindness, and the impact one person could have on another's life. The girl's routine returned to normal, going to school, doing her homework, and spending time with her family, but she noticed subtle changes within herself. She walked with more awareness, noticing her surroundings and the people around her. She felt more confident in making decisions, whether small or significant, and she felt a quiet strength inside that she hadn't known existed before. It was not the absence of fear that had changed her, but the understanding that fear could be faced, managed, and even overcome with the right mindset and support. She shared her story with close friends, who listened intently, amazed at how calmly and bravely the stranger had handled the situation. She described the biker's aggressive behavior, how trapped she had felt, and how the stranger's presence had completely changed the dynamic. Her friends were inspired, realizing that courage could take many forms, not just physical strength but also calmness, awareness, and integrity. The girl felt proud to recount the experience, knowing that it had not only protected her but had also taught her invaluable lessons. At home, her parents were still amazed by the stranger's intervention. They often discussed the encounter, reflecting on how one person's courage had prevented harm and inspired their daughter. The girl's mother remarked on how much she had grown in just a short period, becoming more aware and confident. Her father emphasized the importance of remaining calm in the face of challenges, reinforcing the lessons the girl had learned. The family felt closer, bonded by the shared experience and the insights gained from it. The girl began to notice the ripple effect of that afternoon. She saw how courage and kindness could influence others. Small actions of bravery and empathy became more meaningful to her, whether it was helping a classmate in need, standing up for someone being teased, or simply being aware of others' safety. She realized that the stranger's intervention had not only affected her life but had also inspired her to act with integrity and consideration in everyday situations. She understood that courage was not just a single moment but a way of living, a mindset that could shape actions consistently. In school, the girl became more confident in her interactions with peers and teachers. She spoke up when she saw unfairness, supported friends in difficult moments, and carried herself with a quiet, assured presence. She remembered how the stranger had spoken calmly and confidently to the bikers, and she tried to emulate that approach in her own life. She learned that it was possible to stand firm without being aggressive, to lead by example rather than by force, and to make a difference in the lives of others through thoughtful action. The girl also found herself reflecting on empathy and compassion. She realized that the bikers had acted out of a desire to show power, but that their actions could be countered not with anger, but with understanding, firmness, and calm courage. The stranger had shown her that protecting someone did not require confrontation or hostility, but a steady presence and clear communication. This understanding changed the way she viewed conflict, fear, and human interaction. She felt empowered by the knowledge that strength could be expressed through integrity and composure. As weeks turned into months, the memory of that afternoon continued to influence the girl's decisions and actions. She became more observant, thoughtful, and mindful of her surroundings. She noticed opportunities to help others and to act with courage in situations that might otherwise be ignored. Whether it was offering support to a classmate who was nervous about a presentation or helping a younger student navigate the school grounds, she found herself applying the lessons she had learned in small, meaningful ways. Each act reinforced her understanding of courage, compassion, and responsibility. The girl also realized the importance of expressing gratitude. She often thought about the stranger and the impact he had on her life. Though she did not know his name or where he had gone, she carried the memory of his kindness and bravery with her every day. She understood that sometimes the most profound lessons come from unexpected encounters, and that the influence of one person could resonate long after the moment has passed. The stranger's actions had not only protected her, but had also shaped her character and outlook on life. In her journal, the girl wrote about the encounter in detail, capturing her feelings of fear, relief, and inspiration. She described how she had felt powerless at first and how the stranger's calm presence had changed everything. Writing allowed her to process the experience fully and to reflect on the lessons she had learned. She recognized that she had grown stronger, more aware, and more confident because of that single moment of intervention. The journal became a record of personal growth and a reminder of the power of courage and kindness. Over time, the girl began to share the lessons she had learned with others. She spoke to friends, younger students, and even community members about the importance of staying calm, being aware, and helping others in need. She emphasized that courage is not always about physical strength or confrontation, but about presence, confidence, and empathy. Her story inspired those around her, creating a ripple effect similar to the one she had witnessed that afternoon. She realized that the stranger's actions had not only saved her but had also empowered her to become a source of courage and guidance for others. The girl also thought about how the world could be changed by small acts of bravery. She understood that one person stepping in at the right moment could prevent harm, inspire confidence, and teach invaluable lessons. She carried this understanding into her daily life, approaching challenges with a calm, thoughtful mindset. She became more willing to stand up for what was right, to support those who were vulnerable, and to act with compassion even in situations where others might remain silent. The lessons she had learned were now a part of who she was. As she grew older, the girl continued to reflect on that transformative day. She remembered the fear, the helplessness, and then the sudden arrival of someone who embodied calm courage. The memory reminded her that fear does not define a person, that courage can be quiet yet powerful, and that one individual can make a lasting impact on another's life. The stranger's intervention had not only protected her in the moment, but had also provided a lifelong example of integrity, empathy, and bravery. The girl often thought about the lessons she could pass on to others. She realized that courage, awareness, and compassion are skills that can be nurtured and shared. She became committed to living by these principles, helping others and creating a supportive community wherever she went. The experience had taught her that even in frightening situations there is hope, guidance, and the possibility of positive change. She understood that true strength lies in protecting and uplifting others, and that acts of kindness and courage, no matter how small, can resonate far beyond the moment. Years later, the girl looked back on that day with gratitude and admiration for the stranger who had shown up when she needed help most. She remembered the calm, steady presence, the quiet confidence, and the firm yet gentle guidance. Those memories became a touchstone in her life, reminding her to approach challenges with courage, to act with integrity, and to help those in need whenever possible. The encounter had shaped her character, influenced her choices, and inspired her to live a life guided by empathy and bravery. The girl understood that the stranger's actions had created a ripple effect that extended far beyond the immediate situation. By intervening, he had not only prevented harm but had also empowered her to grow, learn, and become a source of support for others. The lessons of courage, calmness, and compassion continued to guide her through life, reminding her that fear can be managed, that courage can take many forms, and that even small acts of kindness and bravery can change lives in profound and lasting ways. The story of that afternoon remained a defining moment, shaping her understanding of the world and her place in it, forever reminding her that courage is powerful, quiet, and transformative, a chain of positive actions. The memory inspired her to be mindful of her own actions, to act with empathy and bravery whenever possible. The girl's relationship with her parents deepened as she shared her reflections and lessons learned. They discussed the incident, talking about fear, courage, and the importance of being prepared for unexpected situations. They encouraged her to continue practicing awareness and confidence, reinforcing the lessons she had learned from the stranger. The girl felt a growing sense of maturity, recognizing that the encounter had taught her more than just how to stay safe. It had taught her about strength, character, and the power of standing up for others. Weeks passed, and the girl continued to carry the memory of that afternoon with her. She found herself noticing small acts of kindness and bravery in her everyday life, from friends helping one another to neighbors offering assistance. She understood that courage was not always about dramatic actions, but often about simple, thoughtful gestures that made a difference. The lesson of the stranger's intervention became a lens through which she viewed the world, inspiring her to act with empathy, awareness, and integrity in her own life. Through it all, the girl felt a deep sense of gratitude for the stranger who had appeared at the right moment. His calm, steady presence had not only saved her from immediate harm, but had also provided a lifelong lesson in courage, kindness, and resilience. She knew that the impact of that encounter would remain with her forever, shaping her character and guiding her actions in ways she had never imagined. The lesson was clear. True courage is quiet, deliberate, and compassionate, and it has the power to change lives in profound and lasting ways. One more than scare off the bikers. It had taught her about the importance of remaining composed, assessing situations, and seeking help when needed. She felt empowered, knowing that she could carry these lessons with her for the rest of her life. The girl also noticed a shift in her perspective toward others. She began to understand that many people might face fear or intimidation in their daily lives, and that small acts of courage and kindness could make a significant difference. The stranger had not only protected her physically, but had also inspired her to be more aware, compassionate, and ready to stand up for others when possible. The lesson was more than survival. It was about character, integrity, and empathy. Even weeks later, she found herself replaying the scene in her mind. The way the stranger had approached, the calm confidence, the firm but respectful words, every detail remained vivid. She realized that courage is contagious. Seeing someone act with integrity and confidence inspired her own inner strength. The girl began to carry herself with a little more confidence, walking to school and back with awareness but also a sense of self-assuredness. The encounter, frightening as it had been, became a turning point in her understanding of fear, courage, and the power of standing up for others. Nobody deserved to be treated with fear or humiliation. The bikers shifted uncomfortably, their previous bravado disappearing under the weight of his calm authority. The girl could feel the tension in the air, the power dynamic shifting, and she felt a mix of relief and